Everybody, welcome back. My name is Vivian and founder of the Proactive Parents and the convener of the Proactive Parents Conference. Welcome to this second session of day 4. Out of time today, which is an emergency that we needed to attend. The first session didn't start at that time, and that's why we delayed the first session, which is affected. Starting in a bit, but let's speaker right away. Speaker today is Barrister T. Otobo. He is the father of 3 children, a teacher, of servants. Of the world who want to take this conversation of the scriptures. He's going to be speaking to us on the role of father. So, ladies and gentlemen, to this platform, Barrister Obotobo. Thank you for being here. Can you hear me, sir? Can you?
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. I can hear you loud.
Hello, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. What's going on? Can you hear me now?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Leaving the stage. Yes, I can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear. And we are leaving the ahead, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Just go ahead, sir. Hear me. I can hear. Can you hear me? Just go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, all right. I can hear you now. So, okay.
We are leaving the stage for you. I'm leaving the stage. Just take the next time I come, then we'll be rounding up.
Okay, so, all right. I want to apologize to everyone for not having been able to get across to you yesterday when we were to do this presentation. So I will go straight away into the presentation. And of course, the topic is the role of the father in effective parenting. Of course, we have to start by acknowledging that there is a difference between a male parent and a female parent. And the differences are in multiple areas, both in terms of physical differences, even emotionally, there are differences. In our physiology, there are differences. In many areas, in outlook on life, there are differences. But the major thing and the most important thing for the purpose of this topic is that in the family, the man is the head of the family, so the father is the head of the family, and that places a leadership role on the father. And how that leadership role is being discharged is the major issue that we are going to be discussing under this topic. So, first of all, it is God that gave that leadership role to the man. And under any culture at all, that role is acknowledged. That leadership role is acknowledged. So it is a universal phenomenon. It's something that it's not just specific to our own culture in Nigeria, but is acknowledged worldwide. So, and this topic is especially important when you see manifestations of deviant behavior, and maybe you feel that maybe you can see these manifestations being on the rise, increasing, and society is so much concerned about what is happening with children that may not have been well adjusted or may not have been well brought up and are now constituting some kind of problem to society. So the question is, were these children properly raised? Did the parents, especially the fathers, play the role that they were supposed to play in raising these children into well-formed human beings, into well-formed characters? So this topic is especially important because of those manifestations of deviant behavior. And the thing is, as parents, we were also once children of parents, and then before becoming parents of children. So what it means is that each one of us has already gained some experience that should in parent-children relationship that should be useful to us or should form as lessons for parenting. And if that be taken as granted, it would have been assumed that parenting is not a difficult issue. But the truth and the reality is different. And that's why we are doing this topic. And that's why we are trying to relate with one another and share our experiences to know how we can work with each other. And some of the things that we will present as tools or as approaches to raising children, maybe just commonplace issues or commonplace things that we can easily find, things that we easily identify, things that we've heard over and over again. But the fact that parenting still remains a challenge means that we need to still discuss these issues from our own different perspectives and get them reinforced in our minds so that we can have a firmer belief, a firmer acceptance of those things, and a firmer decision also to implement them. So whether parenting is successful or not, first of all, we have to look also at the goals. What are the goals of parenting? What are we molding children? What are we doing with children? How are we parenting them? What are we expecting? What is the outcome that we're expecting? So a parent might think of in parenting a child and raising up that child to play some roles later in life, maybe in terms of career, profession, vocation. Maybe a parent might feel that, okay, this child should be a doctor, a pastor, a businessman, a sportsman, or any other thing that the parent thinks that will be useful to that child when the child grows up. So the parent can mold that child along the lines of those goals that the parent has set. But the most important goal that a parent can set for a child is the child's fulfillment of the purpose of God for that child. If the purpose of God can be fulfilled, if the parent can raise up the child in a manner that the child will walk according to the will of God, the creator of that child, who is the will of God, who is the creator of that child, then that parent would have succeeded and the goal would have been met. And that success is actually an absolute success. Why is it absolute? Because every one of us were created by God, and then God haven't created or has a purpose for us. And so if we walk in the purpose of God, if we walk according to the will of God, then we have fulfilled the purpose for which we have created. And then the parenting has achieved its goal. So what it means is that the most important goal, in fact, the only goal that should be set for parenting is a child walking in the way of the Lord and fulfilling the purpose for which that child was created. If that purpose fails, if that goal fails, then despite any other achievement that that child may record in life, it is a failed project. And within the God-given goals that we should set, the goals that are according to the will of God that we should set, within that goal, within that overarching goal, is the little things that come day by day in the life of the child, from the time of conception to birth to early childhood to teenage period and beyond that. There are things that we as parents, especially as fathers, need to also set as goals that are secondary to the primary goal. So what are these goals? That depends on how we observe the child and how we're able to identify the natural tendencies of that child, the natural proclivities of that child. Where is this child's outlook tending to? What are the natural inclinations of this child? If we're able to identify, and we can identify that through observations, and if we're able to identify that, then we may say, okay, let this child follow this track. And of course, there are parents that have been very successful in that. And some of them have become people that they are on the international stage, and they started very early the parental training and channeling and guidance in that path that corresponds with the child's natural tendencies. They channel the child according to that path, and most of them have come out very successfully. Of course, if you read about the Williams sisters, Serena and Venus, you will know that Venus, in particular, started playing tennis at the age of 4. And from 4, that someone has been playing tennis, it wasn't a surprise that she moved up to the world stage in tennis and scored a lot of achievements, recorded a lot of achievements. So it is important that we are able to observe the child and identify what kind of thing that this child's natural tendencies will suit into. Now, so how are we to raise the child? First of all, as parents, as I've already said, we have leadership role. As fathers especially, we have the leadership role. And that leadership role is vested in us by God himself. If we take a look at the Bible, which is the source of my own beliefs, if we take a look at the Bible, we will see that God made a statement concerning Abraham. He said that Abraham will command his children after him, and they will keep the way of the Lord, so that him, God, will bring to pass the things that he has promised Abraham. What it means is that God, the Creator, expected Abraham to command his household, his children, to follow the path that Abraham was following. And if they followed that path, it would be a path that was going to be pleasing to God. It would be a path that would be in the will of God. Of course, God had been speaking with Abraham. So if God had been speaking with him, then him commanding his children to follow what he was doing means that those children were going to follow the pathway of the Lord, and they will be pleasing to God. And then the promise that God had promised Abraham, that he will be the father of many nations and that all nations will be blessed through him, that promise will be fulfilled. And of course, when we look take a look at the generations down the road, we find out that Isaac, Jacob, they were all very much blessed, and they kept the way of the Lord. And look at this particular fourth generation person, um, Joseph. He was merely about 17 years old when he was sold into slavery. And then, even while serving as a slave, he continued to keep the way of the Lord. Now, what kind of teaching would he have received at age 17? And how would the teaching have been so well established, so internalized, so ingrained in him that he could not depart from that pathway that his parents raised him up in? How come he could not depart from it? That is to say that a lot was done in raising him up, a lot was done in commanding him according to the way of his parents, which were also according to the ways of God. So that means that we have a lot of responsibility as parents, especially as fathers, because the role has been given to us by God. And when God was talking about Abraham, speaking about Abraham, he was indeed speaking of Abraham in his role as a father. He was talking of Abraham as a father. He didn't put the responsibility, that the major responsibility of commanding the household and his children in the pathway of the Lord. He didn't put that, God didn't put that responsibility on Abraham's wife, but he put that responsibility on Abraham himself, because God has put that leadership role in the family on the shoulders of the father. Now, we have already said children could have their own genetic makeup that inclines them in certain ways, in certain directions. And then, because of those genetic makeup, the children could behave in certain ways that they didn't learn from anybody. They would just simply have that genetic makeup will just simply instruct the child on how the child will behave, and the child will behave in that particular way. But while the debate of whether it is the genetic makeup that is more important in the life of a child in outcomes, or whether it is the nurture, the upbringing that makes the child to to make certain specific outcomes possible. While that debate goes on, our role as parents, especially as fathers, is to use our upbringing to shape the life of that child and to influence outcome, which is possible. If influencing the outcome were not possible, God will not have told Abraham that he should command his children and his household to walk in his pathway. God will not have done that. It is because the children will not be left as a fallow ground, as a virgin forest that is untamed. They will not be left that way. If they were left that way, they will be wild. And so they have many multiple sources of instruction. The society as a whole, their school, the church or religious house where they worship, their peers, and a lot of things, institutions that are around that child are involved in upbringing of that child. So the child cannot be like left as if in the wild. And so, but the key responsibility is with the parents, especially the father, as we are going to see, as we are discussing, and we're going to see in the course of this presentation. So, being that we have been children ourselves and our parents have parented us, and now we are parents of children, there has been a role change from being a child to being a parent, and now being the one that is now bringing up children. That means we, as we have said earlier, we have already had some experiences that will be useful forming some lessons for us in terms of how we do our own parenting. So I'm going to be talking also about some of my experiences and how I relate with my children, and what lessons may be derivable from that. First of all, I will talk about the very early part of my childhood. When I was growing up, one of the things that I look back and see as one of the important elements that were that helped me to be who I am today is that I read some books. And not that I started reading as early as the children of these days are starting, but once I started, there was a lot of support from family. And I just kept going that way. In fact, at a point in my teenage years, I used to feel that if I didn't read, then I wouldn't be myself. So, but looking back over the years, there are certain things I identify as important lessons from that, from that what happened. What lesson one is that I observe that the things that I read at an earlier age, I could remember them better. They stuck better in my mind than the things that I read when I was older, when I got older. What that means is that the early period of childhood is actually an opportunity for parents, is a period of opportunity for parents, opportunity to shape the child and influence the outcome in the life of that child. And of course, the Bible itself tells us that we should train a child in the way that he should go, and when he gets old, he will not depart from them. The habit of reading has stuck. That's the second lesson. The habit of reading has stuck. But the first lesson is that the things that I learned at that earlier age, they stuck in my mind better than the things that I read later as I grew older. What it means is that when we were growing up as children, there's a lot of space, a lot of room for us to be more receptive, to accommodate the things that the impulses, and be able to interpret impulses and receive inputs into our hearts, into our minds. So it is easier at that age. And then as we are growing up, it looks as if that space gets a bit narrower. And even though we can learn as much as we want to learn, the capacity to be reshaped at an older age is less. The capacity to get shaped is much more available at a younger stage than at an older stage of development. So that's why I call that early period the period of opportunity for parents. And how do parents maximize that opportunity? They maximize it by really now deliberately shaping the child, deliberately teaching the child, deliberately training the child in the way that he should go. And then as the child grows up and becomes an adult, the child will not depart from those, will not forsake the training that he has received. But it is also possible that parents can miss that opportunity, or at least underutilize that opportunity. How do we miss it? We can miss it by being an absentee parent. We can miss it by being an absentee parent. When we are not available to interact with the children and inculcate certain values in them, make them understand how life is and what they should do, what is right behavior and what is not right behavior. When we are not available for that purpose at that early stage, we miss it. We might think that, oh, we can do it later on and keep postponing it. But the more we postpone it, the more we lose the opportunity of really getting the best benefit or the maximum benefit out of that stage, that early stage. So it is important that we don't miss it. And the opportunity remains, but like the economists will say, talk about the law of diminishing returns. After that precious early period, the law of diminishing returns actually sets in, so that when we are training up the child at an older age, maybe beyond the age of 6, beyond the age of 10, beyond the age of 14, as the child gets older, our training becomes less impactful. In fact, it has been scientifically established that the greatest return on investment in the education of children is investment that we make at the early age, from birth to the age of about 3 or 4. Within that period, within that period, the return on investment in education is at the highest. Beyond that period, it is still going to be high, but keep steadily declining and declining. The opportunity doesn't end, but the return on investment declines. In other words, investment could be in any way of instruction. It's not just formal education, but in instruction. That's why in countries like Sweden and Norway, even when you don't have money, the government makes it possible for you to take your child for pre-nursery education. So it is in acknowledgement of that precious early period that the child has opportunity to learn and be shaped in the future, for the future. So the lesson here is that we should take advantage of that opportunity of early stage in the upbringing of the child. Then the second thing I want to talk about is discipline. How do we discipline our children? Well, I personally, growing up, looking back, I don't remember any time at all that my mother or my father flogged me or beat me. I don't remember at all. And somehow that has been influential in how I also relate with my children. And it is not that I don't beat my children. I don't beat them. They are between the ages of 6 and 10, but never have I spanked any of them. And I just don't feel like I can do it, or I should do it, or that it is important. So the issue is, when they err, what do I do? And when they err, what we do is we sit down and we talk about it. We talk about it, and then I try to make them understand whether what they have done is right or wrong, so they also come to an acknowledgement of whether it is right or wrong. So it is a system of self-censorship. I guide them to be able to determine by themselves what is right and what is wrong. And in that process, I'm able to also understand what is their motive, what caused that kind of behavior that was I call erring. What caused that errant behavior? Why did they do this? Why did they do that? It enables you to understand the thinking of the child, or how the child is thinking, and how you can approach that child. So I have never at any time even spanked any of them, but we talk. Now, you might ask, how effective is that? Okay, their mother beats them, their mother flogs them. But if they are doing something, it is easier for them to listen to me when I say stop than for their mother to listen to them when she says stop. What it means is that despite the spanking, the flogging, the beating that the mother may do to them, they don't still value that as much as the one that is without the flogging and without the beating. So how come that without beating, without flogging, without spanking, you can tell them this thing stop, and they will stop? And then maybe the person who beats or spanks or flogs will tell them stop, and they may not stop. So what it means is that for me, works for me, it is effective for me. And then, but there are other approaches to that. Even the Bible says that do not spare the rod. We shouldn't spare the rod to spoil the child. Is a statement that is derived from the scriptures, that we should not spare the rod to spoil the child. But sparing the rod, what is a rod in the first place? Rod may be the cane that we use, but it could also be, if you read that scripture, there's a lot that has to do with talking with the child. So this talking aspect is what I have adopted. It's not just an adaptation, something I've adopted. It is something that somehow is natural to me. Just like I wasn't beaten, so I don't see a reason for beating, or it doesn't occur naturally to me to beat. And then even my siblings is the same thing with them. I don't know any of my siblings that beat their children. So it could be a combination of natural inclination, inherited traits, as well as upbringing. You were not beaten, so you don't see any reason for beating or flogging your own child. So but there are other approaches, and parents can make a choice of what works for them. But whatever approaches we adopt, it is important for us to once in a while talk with the child to know the reason why the child has done this or done that. Sometimes flogging, beating, spanking could be a substitute for absentee parenting. If we have not been around the child to, make the child understand certain things, make the child know what is wrong, what is right, make the child know our behavior, how we think, and all that, it may cause the child to always misjudge you, misunderstand you, and be on the wrong side of your thinking. And then the child may now become like a source of problem to you. But the reason may be that you were not really present and available to teach that child what is wrong and what is right. And that absenteeism, you may not try to substitute it, try to cover that void with beating and flogging and spanking. But whatever happens, whatever approaches we adopt, we should also include this aspect of once in a while sitting down with the child to discuss with the child to understand what is the motive, what has caused the child to err, what has caused the child to behave in a way that we do not approve. So that is important. Then thirdly, there are many approaches to raising up a child, but I just want to talk about these three. And the first that I've mentioned is the early opportunity that we need to take hold of and maximize. Then the second is what do we do in terms of discipline when the children err. But the third thing I want to talk about that is important in the upbringing of the children is love. Personally, growing up, I was very close with my dad, very, very close. And when I was to go to secondary, and I went out of town for my secondary education, I didn't feel comfortable being out of town because it meant that I was going to be out of reach of my father. So I couldn't stay out of town for long. After the first term, I had to change school back to my hometown so that I could be close to my father. So that is love. That means that there was bond between us. And that is the kind of bond that I also have with my children. They are always happy to see me. They are excited to see me. If I go out of town for 2 days, sometimes you could see the younger ones, they could even cry that they want to see daddy and all that. And so they are always happy to see me around. And that means that it is an opportunity. It creates a very good atmosphere for me to say something to them and for what I say to them to stick. Because under that kind of atmosphere, there wouldn't be resistance to what the parent will communicate to the child. But if the child feels that the parent doesn't love, then the child may develop resistance against instructions of the parents. And that is why some parents find out that their children become hardened the more they flog them, the more they use corporal punishment on them. The children can become hardened. Corporal punishment can harden a child, but love cannot harden anyone. And so this element of love, we must find a way to build it in. And some people talk about spending quality time with their children. And what is that quality time? Most of the time when we're talking about spending quality time, we're talking about going out, having fun and all that. But how about the quantity of time? Because the quality time that you have, if you go out and have fun, you are having fun for the purpose of making the child just feel better in terms of, oh, daddy has provided this, daddy has taken us out, daddy has done this, daddy has done that for us. But the opportunity for instruction is not very much available during those kind of outing for fun. So when we are talking about quality time, we must also consider that there's also quantity time. So quantity time means that you are not absent, you are not too much absent, you are not doing absentee parenting, you are available, you are where they need you, at the time they need you, you are present and available to raise them up day by day, hour by hour, every stage, as much as your time can afford you. And so there must be quantity time. And then when we have that quantity time together with the children, it creates bonding trust. Even people who are not friends, if they spend a lot of time together, talking together, they develop friendship among themselves. They begin to develop a likeness for each other. And so a liking for each other. So how about our children? When we spend a lot of time with them, we can also have, that affords us the opportunity of actually creating mutual trust, which is bonding trust between us and the children. We get to understand the children better. The children get to understand us better. We get to understand their concerns. What could be, troubling them in their hearts, and then they get to understand also from us what we expect from them, what they shouldn't do, what we like, what are the values that we expect them to hold on to, and all that. So showing love to the children is a way of developing, building, bonding trust, and that bonding trust will be something that you can. It will it will last over a long period of time. It's not something that can just get dissipated or something that can fray over a short period of time. If it in any case will deteriorate, it will take a very long period of time, because trust is earned. And so the more time we spend together with the children, the more we earn their trust and they earn our trust. And so that trust, having been earned, will be sustained over a long stretch of time. And so these are three things that I want to talk about. And then in the role of the father as a parent and making that role effective, we have to utilize that early opportunity that is available at that very early stage in the child's development. We have to adopt an approach of discipline that will work for us. And I have shared my own perspective, and if it is something that you might want to adopt, you can adopt. And as well as couple it with what you have been doing before, or if you want to entirely change, you can. And then we must also make room for that love. The love aspect is even more important, because if a child does not believe that you love him or her, that child may suspect what you say and may not believe what you say and may think that you have something different as a motive, and maybe you may not believe that you are actually watching out for that child's good. The child may misjudge you, may misinterpret you. But when there's love between you and your child, the child is willing and ready to receive instructions from you and follow what you're saying. So these are the things that a father can do and be effective in parenting and have a successful outcome at the end of the day. So thank you so much. And then we can take questions if there are any questions. But this is just the points that I
Yeah,
want to just highlight.
this is
Thank you.
this is loaded. A lot of people are raving you, sir, in the comment section. We don't have any question, but a lot of people are saying lots of things I have learned. In the comment section, we are seeing lots of things that I've learned today. Some are saying so many fathers are uninvolved. Yes, yes, and that's why we had this session. Some are saying I have to bring my husband to come and watch this session. That's awesome. A lot of comments are in the comment section here, you know, validating what you have said. So many said, oh, someone said, thank God for you, sir. You are taking the lead. Your wife will your wife will be happy. A lot of comments here are validating all the points you've shared with us, sir. Thank you very much for this awesome, awesome session. It's very impactful. It's very expository, yes, because so many fathers are also doing it from the angle of what they know. Not that the person sometimes not intentionally wants to do that, but because that's the level of what he knows. So this is expository. The person that is putting this comment and saying, I will bring my husband to come and watch it, I'm sure she's a woman. I'm sure she's a woman. That's why she said she will bring her husband. So thank you very much for this expository session. We are grateful. We will call on you again to come and give us more of this impactful session so that we can get more all the fathers involved in their parenting process. Just like someone said, so many fathers are uninvolved. Yes, it's true. So many fathers are uninvolved. So we want every father to get involved so that we can change the narrative of what it is that we had in the past and then begin to holistically raise children who are not broken in any way. If we raise children who need to fix themselves in adult life, then it is going to become a cycle that will continue. So we want to get all the fathers involved and get them intentionally become intentional fathers who will raise children who are wholesome, because there are a lot of things to work on. In Africa, in Nigeria, we are limited in so many ways, and if more fathers get involved, it will help us, also help women who will not feel overwhelmed with the job of parenting. Thank you very much for this session. God bless you. We don't have questions for you to answer. We only want to thank you and tell you that we'll bring you again and again for other impactful lessons like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, sir. All right. Do have a good day. The remaining rest of your day. We will be leaving you to leave the studio now. All right, guys. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. We are coming in for the third session in a moment. Don't go away. We have something streaming on the screen. We will share a bit about it in the last session. Don't go away. We are starting the next session in a moment.